This video is sponsored by NVIDIA AI. The world is about to see a brand new Ekranoplan. Skimming as close as 100 feet above the waves, or 10,000 feet through the clouds to avoid a rough sea, this colossal new transport will revolutionize the way the US military deploys around the world. With more cargo room than a C-17 and 2.3 times more efficient in flight, it will fill the gap between aircraft and ships that is sorely needed. And because it's technically a seaplane, it can land in any harbour in the world without a runway. This aircraft is the game changer for international military logistics that we've been searching for. It's the return of the Ekranoplan. It's the American Aurora Liberty Lifter. Ekranoplans are not new. The Soviets and the Americans had been coming up with various versions of the aircraft for decades, with the former actually making some truly monster aircraft, with plans to even scale them as big as an aircraft carrier. And you see, that's the magic of Ekranoplans. They can be 2.3 times bigger than normal planes because they fly with something called the ground effect. That's where essentially, and the physicists watching this are going to slam my rudimentary explanation right now, that you ride on top of a bubble of air between the ground and the aircraft. And this works because air passing underneath an aircraft wing generates increased pressure, normally resulting in lift. But what if the plane doesn't actually rise into the sky, and the air underneath generates more pressure, which in turn creates more lift, and then reduces the thrust needed to move the aircraft, essentially floating on a bubble of air. So now that we have a hack to make huge planes float seemingly in the sky, what do we use it for? While the Soviets look towards aircraft carriers, the Americans look towards transport. Now this next piece of news is an absolute game changer. If you want to make videos like me but you don't know where to start, then you need to use NVIDIA AI's new game changer update, version 3. It's launching soon and blows every other video tool out of the water, including those other AI video apps like Runway, Pika, and even Sora, which I'll remind you hasn't even released yet. That's right, NVIDIA AI version 3 is here, complete and ready to be used by you to make anything you want, and I do mean anything, because now it has the generative capability to make any idea come to life with simple text prompts. You just get to be the director and let your imagination take over. One example I love is how you can make the TV show Breaking Bad with Lego characters, and it just does it flawlessly.
Yo, Mr. White, this is totally plastic.
And unlike other tools that just make a small clip that you have to somehow figure out how to use online, NVIDIA AI version 3 does the whole video, script, and voiceover, and just gives you a completed video. So if you want to make changes as well, like using your own voice, it's done with the click of a button. Seriously guys, it's never been that easy to bring your imagination to life, and if you haven't checked out NVIDIA AI's current version already, go check it out right now for free with pay plans starting for just $20 a month. And if you use my code, you get 2 times the number of video creation minutes in the first month. Damn, that's pretty damn good. The issue that the Americans faced during the Cold War was how to get troops, tanks, and tacos from the US mainland to Europe as rapidly as possible if things got hot between the Soviets and their European partners. Well, normally the Americans would have to rely on slow ships or fast small cargo planes. One compromised on speed and the other on size. So why not use Ekranoplans? Boeing would actually take on this challenge to significantly reduce deployment time, aiming to deliver an army brigade of 3,000 soldiers and 8,000 short tons of equipment within 96 hours. Eastern seaboard to sunny Spain in only 4 days, a task that previously took 3 to 6 months. And long story short, the aircraft that they came up with was the Pelican. Absolutely staggering in size and utilizing the ground effect, this giant bird would have fit the bill and changed the logistics game. Boeing also thought to introduce a civil model with up to 3,000 passengers once the aircraft had been utilized by the military. And it couldn't be built fast enough, with the Pentagon demanding they design to deliver a fleet of aircraft by the end of 2020. But of course, we don't have these flying in the sky today, so this didn't actually happen and the program was cancelled around 2005, with the US Armed Forces returning back towards conventional environmentally efficient planes and ships, and the giant Ekranoplan was no more. But you can watch all about the Boeing Pelican on the channel right after this video. I've done a deep dive in its design and why it never actually happened, so go check it out. But of course, in 2022, the Ekranoplan was pulled back into the light. DARPA would actually issue a new contract to develop a new lifting cargo aircraft designed around the ground effect, called the Liberty Lifter. They would need a plane that was big enough to carry large, heavy loads over oceans, but also the ability to fly over islands and waves up to a staggering 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters. That's the plane flying, not the deep impact waves that are expected to be out in the ocean. You would also know that this is outside the ground effect, but this would solve the issue that plagued earlier Ekranoplan's designs, such as stormy seas, and why the Caspian Sea Monster was never actually quite practical to be used across the ocean. DARPA's new Liberty Lifter would also need to be able to land and take off from the water, meaning that no special airports would need to be built, and it would give it pretty much unparalleled flexibility. After a few months, two contenders for the program came forth. The first was General Atomics Aeronautical Systems, who developed a pretty cool looking concept. It would have a twin hull and a mid-wing with 12 turboshaft engines, 2 cockpits, and a joint tail. The second team to apply would be Boeing and their subsidiary called the Aurora Flight Sciences, who would develop a mono-hull high wing that would be propelled by 8 turbine engines. You might realize that this is similar to the Boeing Pelican that had been around a few decades before, and it was essentially the same thing. So, way to reuse the same work. DARPA was impressed by these two designs and started Phase 1 by giving them around $50 million to develop the concepts further over the next year. But this wasn't free money. DARPA would actually turn up the heat on the program's specifications. The new specifications for the craft included the ability to fly less than 100 feet from sea level to harness the ground effect, and also the ability to climb as high as 10,000 feet above the mean sea level. And while that was in the original specification, this time it would also need to be able to take off, land, and fly when the sea was choppy and turbulent, but also operate as a seagoing vessel when there were some pretty significant waves on the water's surface. The aircraft would also need a ferry range of 6,500 nautical miles, which is around 12,000 kilometers, and also meet the United States Department of Defense heavy lift requirements of being able to carry 90 tons and having a low-cost design and construction philosophy. So they didn't really want to pay a lot of money for these aircraft either. Such an aircraft would be similar in size capacity to the Boeing C-17 Globomaster and be able to carry a load equivalent of 2 US Marine Corps amphibious combat vehicles, or 6 20-foot storage containers. So this aircraft would be pretty flexible and useful for all sorts of operations, everything from Marines to Navy to even top secret programs. DARPA would close off the first phase by saying that the winner would go on to develop a full-scale prototype with a flying aircraft within 5 years. So flash forward to this year, and back in May, DARPA finally selected its winner, the Aurora Liberty Lifter. Aurora's design would use a traditional flying boat airframe with a single hull and high wings that angle down at the ends, with floats on the wingtips and a forked tail to accommodate an aft cargo door. The concept was scaled down to a C-130 Hercules-sized demonstrator with only a wingspan of 213 feet, capable of only lifting 50,000 pounds of cargo. But if successful, it could actually be scaled back up to the size of the C-17 with a cargo capacity of at least 180,000 pounds. The plan is to get it into the air by late 2027 or early 2028, with a full service rollout by 2030 if the program moves ahead to active use. The Liberty Lifter fills a critical gap between today's airlift and maritime transport capabilities, said the president and CEO of Aurora Flight Sciences. Development in this space would advance strategic operations at sea, and we're proud to be working with DARPA, Boeing, and our partners to move this technology forward. And from this point is where we enter the world of speculation. Boeing did want to turn the Pelican into a passenger transport back in the day, and there's no reason why it couldn't do it with this aircraft. But we do need to keep in mind that it would only operate as a seaplane and wouldn't make a ton of sense to be used for passengers outside of those conditions. While it could be a perfect aircraft for charter flights to island destinations such as the Pacific, outside of that, I can't imagine any routes that would make a sense than the old regular aircraft we have today to normal land-based airports. Now, if they made a version that could land on land at a normal airport on a runway, that's when we cook. Thanks for watching.